Hey Math 8, this is Mr. Bainey, and we're going to take a look at, hey, what's up Math 1? We're going to take, hello, this is Mr. Bainey. Hello Math 8, Mr. Bainey here, and this lesson is 7.1, solving equations with variables on both sides. Previously, you learned how to solve one and two-step equations, so knowing how to do those is going to help you a lot here. Let's go straight to our first example. We have the equation 6y plus 1 equals 2y plus 13. Remember that our goal is to isolate that variable, that y, or to get it by itself. Now what's different in this equation compared to in the past is we have the y that's on both sides of our equation. So if I draw my line down the middle here where the equal sign is, I got the 6y on the left side and the 2y there on the right side. Okay, so I'm going to box those. And our first step is we want to make a 0 with one of those terms. So I'm going to make a 0 with one of the variables, or one of the variable terms, right? So one of the terms that has the variable in it. And remember, the way that we make a 0 is by adding or subtracting in order to get rid of it, right? To make it a 0. So I always suggest choosing the one that is smaller. So if we have 6y on the left, 2y on the right, the 2y is the smaller one. And in order to make that one a 0, we're going to subtract 2y, which means I need to subtract 2y also on the left side. So let's see what happens when I subtract 2y. We know that the 2y on the right side and minus 2y, that's now gone. That's 0, but I still have 13 on the right side. It's this one right here. So the positive 13. That's the right side. On the left side, 6y minus 2y will give us 4y. And I also have the plus 1, which is right here. So now I have a 4y plus 1 equals 13. That's my equation that's left over. And hopefully this looks familiar. It is a two-step equation. And so the step number 2 is to make a 0 with the constant. And constant means a number without a variable, which in this case is the 1. All right, the constant that we're looking at, 1 is a constant, 13 is also a constant, but the constant that's with the variable, I should say, or on the same side as the variable. So the plus 1 is what we want to make a 0 with. In order to make it a 0, let's subtract 1. And on the right side, I'm going to subtract 1 also. And plus 1 and minus 1 make a 0. I'm only left with 4y on the left side. And then 13 minus 1 gives us a 12 on the right side. The very last step is to make a 1 by multiplying or dividing. And I forgot to include it in the first two steps, but the way we make a 0 is by adding or subtracting. So I should have written that down. I'll put it in symbols here. So adding or subtracting in the first two steps. In the last step, we're going to multiply or divide if we have to. And the reason is the 4y that's left means 4 times y. And since it's multiplying, we're going to divide. And if we take 4 and we divide it by 4 again, we get a 1, or 1y, which means we divide by 4 on the other side as well, and we have y equals 3. I'm going to show you how we check our answer on the next example. So here I just want to focus on here are the steps to solving it. Okay, it took us 3 steps. So in that first step, we want to get the variable only on one side because it starts with the y on both sides, the left and the right. And then we're going to make a 0 with the constant, and then we're going to make a 1 by multiplying or dividing. Example 2. Negative 2r minus 1 equals negative 3r plus 4. Let's draw our line where the equal sign is. My variables include this negative 2r and negative 3r. Okay, those are the variable terms. So when you're trying to compare negative 2 and negative 3 is the smaller number. Remember, my preference is make a 0 with the smaller one. So I'm going to do plus 3r. Since it's negative, plus 3r. On the right side, since I have negative 3r plus 3r, that's gone, and I have only the 4. That's at the end, the plus 4. Negative 2r plus 3r, that's like saying negative 2 plus 3, which would be a 1r. And then I have the minus 1 that's just next to it, this right here, the minus 1. My equation is now 1r minus 1 equals 4. Let's make a 0 with the constant that's being added or subtracted here with the r. So that's the minus 1. So let's do a plus 1. Add 1 to both sides. I'm left over with just 1r on the left. On the right side, it's 4 plus 1, which is 5. And this last step here isn't really necessary, but I'll show it to you anyway. 1r is the same as r, because you got to think 1 times r. The 1 doesn't really do anything, doesn't change the r. But if you just wanted to be sure, it's 1 times r, so divide by 1, and dividing by 1 doesn't change it, so it's r is 5. Okay, let's check our work. In order to check the work, we need to take the original equation, so this one up here, which is negative 2r minus 1 equals negative 3r plus 4. And you're going to change the r to 5, because right here we got r equals 5. So I'm going to change this to a 5. So it's negative 2 times 5. Okay, I'm going to erase it. Negative 2r is negative 2 times 5, which is negative 10. And then negative 3r is negative 3 times 5, which would give us negative 15. And we would just want to see if these equal. Well, negative 10 minus 1 is negative 11. And then negative 15 plus 4 is also negative 11. Okay, so that checks. The your turn example, please try this out. And in fact, let me give you 2 to try out. Number 1, 4a minus 3 equals 2a plus 7. And then number 2, negative 3r plus 9 equals negative 4r plus 5. Please pause this video for a few minutes, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, so that you can try these out. And then after several seconds here, you're going to see the answers pop up. So please go ahead and pause it before you see the solution. And here are the solutions. Number 1, a equals 5. And number 2, r equals negative 4. Let me briefly go over these. So in number 1, your turn, I subtracted 2a on both sides here. Got left with what's written in blue. Then we added 3 to both sides because there's a minus 3. We want to make that a 0. So we got a 10 on this right side, left over with 2a, then divide by 2 to make that into a 1. And 10 divided by 2 gives us our solution. So change a to 5 up in the original problem. So 4 times 5 here is 20. And then 20 minus 3. Then 2 times 5, remember the answer is 5, is 10 right there. And then I did a plus 7. So 20 minus 3 is 17. 10 plus 7 is 17. That is a true statement, and therefore that's a correct answer. So A equals 5 is our correct answer. Okay, don't confuse that with the 17 that we're getting here. The answer is 5. And then similarly in number 2, this is pretty similar to our example 2 over here. Let me zoom in a little bit. We added plus 4 4r on both sides because there's a negative 4r. Would make that a 0. And then in the next step, subtract 9 on both sides. And then the 1r, I mentioned this earlier, is the same as just r by itself because it's 1 times r, which is r. And therefore, 5 minus 9 is going to be our final answer of negative 4. And then I plugged it in here. So negative 4, this gets tricky because negative 4 here means negative 3 times negative 4, which is a positive 12. So that's 12 plus 9. Negative 4 times r, which is negative 4. Okay, negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16 plus 5. Okay, that's what I wrote down here in purple. 21 equals 21, and that means our answer is correct. Let's try this last one, which is example number 3. Here's a word problem that we need to convert into an equation and therefore solve it. So the first part says, I am thinking of a number. A number, as soon as there's something that comes up that you don't know what it is, that's going to be our variable or our x. This number increased by 4, which is x plus 4. Okay, increase means we're adding. Is the same as, so this means we're going to use an equal sign. 19 minus 2 times the number. So 19 minus 2x. 2x means 2 times x. And that's our equation. If I draw a line down where the equal sign is, I got the x over here. That's like saying it's a 1x. And then this here is a negative 2x. So in order to make a 0, and I'm going to do it with the smallest one, which is the negative 2, let's do plus 2x. Okay, plus 2x. Make sure you're copying this down exactly because you want to make sure you have every part of the terms, the things that we're adding. Okay, some students forget to write the x, and therefore we can't really combine it because these both have to have an x. So we end up with, on the left side, 3x, then we have a plus 4 still, and then on the right side, since we made a 0, we have only the 19 left over. Let's subtract 4 on both sides, so minus 4 and minus 4. That's to make a 0 with that plus 4. We have just 3x left over on the left and 15 left over on the right. And the last thing is to make our 1 by dividing by 3, which means x is going to equal 5. So this is the number that I was thinking about. Okay, and make sure you go and check it. I'll show this really quick and then we'll be done with this. X plus 4, so the number increased by 4, which means 5 plus 4, is the same as 19 minus 2 times the number. The number is 5, so 2 times that is 10. And 5 plus 4 is 9. 19 minus 10 is 9. And we're done. On the back side of your notes are some more practice problems for you to try out. The bottom two, number 7 and number 8, you are creating your own equations that you're going to go ahead and solve. And the equations will end up looking like the first six, right? You're going to have an equation where you have variables on both sides. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.